Here are your insiders, Bob McKenzie, Darren, Dreger, and Pierre LeBrun. I guess, Dreg, is what everybody is waiting for, the hockey fans anyway. First step, when players are allowed to get together and start skating again. But there's no guarantee that will happen, at least for all players?
No, I mean, the goal is, of course, to initiate phase 2 at some point around the middle of May, maybe the third week of May, but it's a recommendation. It's not mandatory. What is mandatory, assuming there is a go-ahead, is that NHL players report to their NHL cities for the start of training camp, and potentially that could be around June 1st. But there are others who say that phase 2 may not be initiated. There's certainly no guarantee of that, and that's all health related. Important to note, though, there will be no agreement on an NHL resumption unless players have an allowance to visit with their families. How does that happen? I mean, could families come into a safe zone in an NHL city? Could an NHL player be released to go visit his family for 5 days up to a week and then test and then be reintroduced back to the NHL club? All of these things are in the discussion stage.
We don't know if they'll finish this NHL season. We don't know when and how the next NHL season will start. So many events in question, including the World Juniors slated for Red Deer and Edmonton this coming Christmas. And Bob, what are the scenarios they are going over about either going ahead or not going ahead with the World Juniors?
Well, you're right, James. And Hockey Canada over the next 2 or 3 weeks here is going to really start drilling down and forming some internal committees, task force, if you will, that would look at every aspect of putting on the World Juniors at opposite ends of the spectrum. That is to suggest putting on the World Juniors in Edmonton at the prescribed time in front of fans. Could it be done? What's the feasibility, the viability, all those things? Opposite end of the spectrum. What about having to cancel or postpone the World Juniors? What will be the timetable on that? What are the economics and the viability and feasibility of all of that? And what about the in-between or intermediate steps, if you will? And they're not out of the question, where maybe the World Juniors could be played in front of no fans. That's still a possibility and something this committee will look at over the next 2 to 3 weeks once it's all formed and up. And of course, all of this has to be done in concert with the IIHF.
Back to the NHL side, we have forgotten, I think, a lot of people, that we were right in the middle of very important CBA negotiations when all of this happened. Where are they at, and how soon could we see some form of agreement if they can work it out, Pierre?
Yeah, that's right, James. CBA talks were essentially shelved when the pandemic happened for obvious reasons. The NHLPA and the NHL had immediate concerns in terms of dealing with this crisis. But what I'm being told is that the two sides have signaled an intention to each other to re-engage and at some point here to schedule some CBA discussions to get the ball rolling again on that. Now, someone involved told me, I mean, everything we've been talking about the last month has to do with the CBA. So in some ways, it's not like they've stopped talking about the CBA, but on a more macro level, the long-term viability of the system, of the league, of what the players and owners need, that has been shelved, and that's going to have to return here soon enough. And it's the most important conversation to be had for players and owners in terms of the financial impact of this pandemic on their livelihoods. And they need a long-term CBA. There's no other choice.
Right. You can't have pandemic crisis followed by lockout. Insider trading from TSN Hockey.